Namaste, good evening everyone. Today I was speaking with Siddhananda a little bit, and then we were talking, she was asking a little bit more about what it's like to live in the mind of Advaita. What remains. So, like I said, when realization takes place, there's a very perceptible shift that takes place. When the moment of realization happens, it's more real than anything one can feel on this earth plane, yet it's not something that one is seeing with the eyes or the ears, it's not with the five senses, but it's absolute real. And again, in that moment, one knows that it's this eternal is that's never been born and never died, yet it runs like a thread through all of creation. Okay? The mind stills. And the mind, in the way that it's in Advaita, is that Turiya Tata state. Okay, or the Sahaj Samadhi, ongoing, easy Samadhi, effortless. That's what Sahaj is, effortless. It's an effortless Samadhi that remains, okay? The mind does not reroute. One is at that point in absolute quiet mind. There are no more running thoughts that take place. Okay, one is just seeing, as some people along the journey get to witness state, where they're seeing, but it doesn't feel like there's somebody that's seeing. That happens earlier in the journey, okay? The mind starts to still, and there's an expansion of seeing that takes place in interaction that one has in the universe. Well, what happens in the living reality here is that from that point you're only in the moment, ever present in the moment. I cannot sit there and go back into something that happened a while ago. It's like trying to remember some old movie, but there's no charge to it. Okay? You can sometimes have a remembrance of event, but the time, your time feeling is different from this time forward. It's just different. People ask me if I'm excited to go do something, anticipating. Well, there's no anticipation, okay? There's no excitement because it hasn't happened yet. It's not in my reality yet. You are really fixed in the moment. That's it. There's no past for you. There's no future for you. There is no cognition of that. Okay? There's no charge with past events. There's no excitement about future events. One is absolutely present in the moment. So that's what remains. It's and it's very hard to explain to people what it's like to be just absolutely present. And when something is finished, it's like it never happened. Okay? I'll get back tomorrow from my vacation time, and it will be like, wasn't I going to go somewhere? It really is that different, that really one is only in the present from that time forward. And again, the one doesn't have running thoughts, so there's no dialogue about what's happened or some dialogue coming up about what's going to happen. That doesn't exist. Okay? And you can't manufacture that. I can't go back and manufacture some emotional response or some dredging up of something. It's just no longer there. That's not possible. Okay? So it's a very different reality that one is in. They are just fully present. Okay? That's why when something comes up to do satsang or something, I have to stop what I'm doing and do it right then, because I'm not going to remember it in a while. It's just going to vaporize and just go. It's not, it's a different type of happening here. So again, you can't be angry. You can't hold anger at people. You can be recognize the situation and not be happy with that type of a situation. But as far as actually having anger with people, and it's not in place. You can't manufacture that. Again, that doesn't happen. Yeah, it's a very odd thing to try to explain to people what it is to live in this type of mind that's still. Things, it's like the stilled lake. Something happens and there's like a ripple on the lake, but then it goes right back to stillness. Everything that one sees from a point of stillness. Okay? One is always in that unmoving is. And that's why it's non-duality, not two. Okay? There is no unification with something. One is just always in that present stillness. Okay? Talking happens. I don't know. The body talks. Okay? These things just take place. They happen spontaneously. If somebody asks a question, the words appear. That's all. So it's just, Siddhananda was asking today about, if one can reroute or if it's, cut immediately. Well, it might not be cut immediately the moment that realization takes place. If one has that experience of realization, and then when the vision comes back of the world, if at that point one is trying to go back into mind and make sense of it, trying to intellectualize it, and the mind starts running again, then one can reroute. In the journey here, was fortunate enough that my guru had asked me, when it happened, I contacted him, of course, immediately. And he says, "Are you convinced of this?" And I said, "No, I'm not convinced. To be convinced of something, there must be some doubt somewhere, but there is no doubt at all." So then he was questioning and just speaking of what took place, of the falling away in this grand is, and, the death of that death, what took place. And when speaking, he said, that's the Ashtavakra Gita, the Vivek Chudamani, what you're speaking. That's realization. I didn't know the Ashtavakra, the Vivek Chudamani. I had no idea what that was. But fortunately, when he said that, I did get those texts and started reading them. And that solidified, that absolutely cut whatever thread could have been there, and was fortunate here that it never rerouted. It wasn't an experience that had come and gone, and the mind started going. When things fell away here, they were gone. And then the Ashtavakra and the Vivek Chudamani helped to just allow whatever might have been remaining there to just die out. Yeah, and then when it's cut, it's cut. One can't go back and remanufacture it again. It just doesn't happen. There is no root left. That root has essentially gone. Okay. So again, one lives in a very different type of a reality. Your reality remains just in that absolute stillness. Everything comes from stillness, proceeds out, and then goes back into stillness. Okay. There's no running mind that goes any longer. I don't hear thoughts. I don't have, none of that happens. Again, so it's difficult sometimes to come up with a satsang thing. If somebody asks a question and something appears, otherwise for me it's just mainly quiet. So again, it's, if I have to stay externalized to be able to work with people. It would be very simple for me to be internalized and be a bliss monkey all day. But that's not going to help the students if I'm in that la-la land all day running around like a bliss monkey. Anyway, so that's what it's like to live in the mind of Advaita, the land of not to. Okay, there doesn't feel to be any separation. One doesn't think of this body as persona. There's no story there. The story fell away a long time ago. In the moment of realization, that story that one has had about themselves deconstructs. It's gone. What remains is just that awareness of that still center. And one watches everything proceed from that point. That's all. So again, that's why today, when I'm looking at the Kashmiri Shaivism, I don't see that they go to that point of not to. And when one is in unity, or in that oneness, mind is still going. Okay, mind is still spinning its story. Okay. So that's what really, at this point, caused questioning of the Kashmiri Shaivism path and the differentiation, because when they said that there's nothing that goes to that still point, that there's a spanda that happens instead. Then there's no, they don't enter into that nibbana, that being blown out, or turiyatata, where the mind is still, where there's no mind play any longer. And that's what is Advaita, that state of that still, unchanging, okay, where there is seeing that happens, but one basically says no seer, okay. Yeah. And I think there's a mistaken notion in Kashmir Shaivism that when one gets to this non-duality state, that it's void and devoid, but it's not. It's like I said, it's like pure intellect. It's like it's pure intellect. It's pure life force. It's pregnant void with everything that will come into existence is there. It's not devoid. If one has entered a devoid, then that's way prior to realization. One can go through a place, a portion that feels void, but that's not it. It's absolutely alive, okay, with more substance than anything in the material world, although it's not substance like you would think of in the material world, because it's not seen with the five senses, okay? It's something beyond that. Yeah, and it's, in that moment, it's absolutely blissful. It's, yeah, one can say in one way love, one can say all-encompassing, just perfection. This, so again, so hard to put into words. It's beyond being able to describe. People ask if I meditate. That's another good one. Meditation is about stilling the mind. So no, I don't need to actively meditate. I am in the state of meditation all the time. That's why it's called sahaj, effortless, okay? It's an ongoing, like an ongoing deep state of meditation. The mind is stilled, okay? So, no, I don't have to, if I sit and meditate, I'm just sitting, because my consciousness doesn't change. So for me to just sit, like in meditation, it's actually boring, because it's not changing my consciousness at all. Whether I'm walking, it's the same consciousness. If I'm sitting, it's the same consciousness. No matter what I'm doing, it still comes out of that stilled state. So I think, again, people have a lot of very mistaken notions about what it is to be enlightened or in realization, or what the actual state of Turiyatada is, what it is in Sahaj Nirvikalpa, what that remains as, okay? One is quite aware of what's taking place, but everything comes from a very still place, okay? And again, you're in the moment, you have emotions. Yes, there are emotions. They're pure emotions, and they're momentary. And when the event is over, it's done. Okay? So that's it. Everything is momentary. Nothing sticks. You're kind of like Teflon. Nothing sticks at all. Everything is just simply in that moment, and when that moment's passed, it's as if it never was. Okay? So that's what it's like to live in the mind of realization. Again, you can't manufacture old storylines. They don't come up. You can't, there is no attachment to it. What's past is past. That's the end of it. And you can't project in the future. You don't get excited, because there There is no projection in the future. It's not possible. Okay? It's not possible to drag up the past. It's not possible to project in the future for one that is realized in realization. The only time for that one is in the moment as it is. That's it. So that's what remains for one in realization. Okay? Yes, one can sit in a moment and just be. If I sit here and do the balanced breath and stay in the heart center, I can be in absolute bliss mode, absolute bliss. Okay. But one is not attempting to be in bliss or whatever. Even just sitting here, it's like going. Yeah. Like I said, for the first few years, one is always in overwhelming bliss. If one looks at a tree and sees the leaf flutter, one feels it in their heart, and it's just bliss. You feel everything, for a few years until the settling happens. Because it's just so awe-inspiring to see from this place of stillness. They're seeing, but there's no seer. Okay, one's very conscious that there's no one there. And this is why when realization first takes place, it's very difficult to use the word I, because there is no I there. There is more speaking of without the use. It's not that one's trying to, you say one, or you say, because it's very difficult to come back to that pattern of speech, normalized speech pattern. And people think you're trying to make something up, but it's just, that's not in the cognition any longer. It feels fake to use the word I. It feels very fake, like one is making up a story. Okay. It's not done to impress somebody or something. It's just, it's difficult. And when everything falls away for a while, here was in such stillness and quietude, I didn't want to speak too much with people. It was difficult to come back into interaction with people. It took a while to be able to have more interactions. Had to keep pulling myself out, keep pulling out to be grounded, to be able to work with people. It doesn't help anyone if I'm in very much what I'll call Advaita speak. It's very normal here to do that, but it's not going to help the students because they are not in that space. So we need to be able to relate to where they're at in their space and pull them forward. Okay, so, but it's much easier to not use the words I and not to have that type of what most people call normal conversation, normal, which is very abnormal for here. But one eventually learns to reuse the commonality language in order to be able to express, to help others. Yeah. So again, no, don't need to do practices. The practices are done sometimes, which I'm going to have to do again soon, the mantras, so I can amp up the mantras again, continue to energize them. Okay. Just as sadhus, if about sadhus. I know most people don't know this, but the sadhus that live out in the caves, the real sadhus, not the fake ones, not the nakali babas. Okay, there are a lot of nakali babas. It means the fake babas. Tons of those. But the genuine sadhus, there are a few still left in India, the genuine sadhus are in states of meditation most of the time. And once a year, these sadhus, the danda that they carry, what happens, I'm going to let you in a little secret that most people don't know. But the sadhus, they keep the danda, and they do these mantras, and they enliven this. They keep putting the energy into that danda. And once a year, they will go down to the temples, and they will take the danda and touch the murtis and infuse the murtis with this energy from all these practices that they have been doing. And that's one of the secrets of the sadhus, how that works and how the murtis stay energized. Okay? So I'm going to leave that at that. Yes, when you're a sadhu, you have special language, there are special mantras, there are things that one is initiated into when one lives that life, the life of the sadhu or the sadhvi. In my case, of course, I was a sadhvi. But yes, there's special language that they have. There's special mantras that one does. And again, like I said, they do the mantras and infuse the murtis, keep the murtis enlivened. Okay. So I'm going to close this out for here. Namaste. Start of the new year. I hope everyone is continuing with their journey and their practice, whatever journey you're on, and may you come to completion. Namaste. Have a great day. Bye.